If, like me, you grew up in the days before digital photography, there's a very strong possibility that you have a large collection of photographic prints. A lot of them will be in these little packets like this. This Kodak one, here's an Agfa one from the local processing laboratory. And even if you didn't grow up in those days, the chances are that you've got some of those anyway in the family, that you may have inherited some from relatives and grandparents and so forth, like this. I've got an old picture of my grandfather, which I've kind of inherited. There's an old school photo. I've got about 16 boxes like this, which I'm gradually decanting into these sort of packets here of prints going back to before I was born. And I've also got a huge number of transparencies, about 5,000 or more Kodachrome and Velvia transparencies from my days shooting professionally in the 80s, stock photography, before digital photography came along. And I decided it was high time I should digitize these and bring them into the modern age. The problem is it's an enormous task. It's going to take a very long time to do, and I need a way to make it simple, quick and easy as possible. So I've been looking into ways to do that. So today I'm going to be talking you through how I am digitizing this large collection of prints and slides in the most efficient way possible to get the maximum quality I can. Now, there are multiple different ways to digitize your prints. The most obvious one, the one you possibly already have in your home, is an all-in-one printer scanner like this. Now this combines a printer and a scanner, and the scanning part is at the top. You lift up the lid, you put your print on the glass plate and you close it. Now these scanners do deliver good results, and they're fine for the odd picture here and there. But if you have a lot of pictures to scan, these are very, very slow. By the time you press the scan, there's a scanning bar which travels across the length of the plate, scanning line by line across your print, and then it has to process that and then save it to your computer. And that can take a couple of minutes, which is fine with one print. If you've got several hundred prints, this is just going to take a very, very long time. The other drawback with these is the amount of dust that you get on the glass plate. You'll be constantly cleaning the glass plate because it seems to attract dust like static. So although good for one or two prints, not the answer if you've got a lot of pictures. Now, if you're scanning slides or transparencies, most of these can't do that, but there are a few that allow you to scan transparencies, usually flatbed scanners that are just dedicated scanners, and they'll come with little plastic holders like this to put your transparencies or negatives in. A better option than the all-in-one printer scanner, if you have a lot of prints, is something like this, the Epson FastPhoto FF680W. This is a batch scanner. You can put a whole packet of 36 prints into the back, and it will scan them all automatically, one after the other. And it'll even scan the back. If you have writing on the back, it will scan that as well for you. This actually delivers pretty good results, and it's quite fast. It can sometimes get a little bit confused if you've got prints of different sizes all mixed up together. It's best to separate them and organise them. And obviously there's a size limit if you have very big prints. And if you've got prints that are card mounted, like a lot of old Victorian photographs, which I've got a few of, you can't really put stiff backed photographs into here, but it does a very good job of batch scanning packets of prints that you may have got back in the days when you're shooting film and that have taken them to the local high street lab to get developed. The main drawback of something like this, if you don't already have one, is the cost. This costs about £500 to buy, so you need to have a lot of prints to make it financially viable to buy something like this. But in my case, I do have a lot of prints, and the only reason I'm not using this is because I think there's a better method even than this, which I'm going to come to in a moment. Now, with modern high-resolution cameras and phones, you already have a capture device in your possession which is capable of making very good digital copies of your prints. The most obvious option is to use your phone, and your phone is capable of producing relatively high-resolution pictures from your prints. And a lot of people do use their phones. There are little scanning apps you can buy which are designed especially for the purpose. There are a couple of issues to be aware of. One is making sure that everything is all lined up with the phone. You do tend to get, because of the nature of the optics in a phone, there's quite a lot of distortion. So getting a distortion-free print is slightly challenging. The other problem is edge sharpness with your phone, which you don't really notice in your day-to-day snaps. But if you were to, say, take a photograph of a magazine page and fill the frame of your phone with the magazine page, and then look at that picture in detail, you'll probably find that the text around the edges is a bit woolly and fuzzy and a little distorted. So a phone is an okay option, but it's not the best option. By far the best option, if you have one, in my opinion, is to use your digital camera. Modern cameras are very high resolution, very capable of creating very large, high quality digital versions of your analog prints. This is a Nikon Z7 II. It's a 45 megapixel camera. And one of the great things about using this is that it has, I've got a zoom lens, so I can zoom in. Once I've got it set up, I can zoom in for different size prints to fill the frame just exactly as I want. But I also have, which is actually probably better from a quality point of view, if all your prints are the same size, a dedicated macro lens. This is the Nikon 105mm macro lens. And these kind of lenses are designed for sort of very flat field work like copying, and they deliver really fantastic results. And of course, you can photograph tiny, tiny prints with this, even transparencies with a macro lens. And another benefit of it is that this particular one, and a lot of cameras now also have this, is a tilting screen. So when you've got the camera set up on a stand, which I will demonstrate in a moment, you're going to have to stand on a chair to be able to look onto the back of the screen or into the viewfinder. You can see what you're doing more easily. Now, having selected your camera, the next thing you want to do is to support it in some way, to hold it steady so it's fixed in a single place while you photograph all your prints. The most obvious, cheapest option is to use a tripod. If you're photographing your prints against a wall, then a normal tripod is absolutely fine. But if you're photographing them on the ground or on a desktop, then ideally you want one like this, the Manfrotto 190 Pro, where the center column can be removed and can be positioned horizontally, which enables you to point the camera down at the ground more easily, like this one. So this is a great option for this sort of thing. But with a regular tripod, it's fine if you're photographing them on a wall. If you are pointing downwards, you did have to watch out that you don't get the legs in the way of your workflow, and if make sure that where you're putting your lights as well, that the legs aren't in the way. If you're using your phone as your capture device, then in order to attach it to a tripod, you'll need a phone holder like this, which has a tripod thread on the bottom, and that simply just screws onto the tripod, and then you insert your phone in the normal way. All the same things apply about making sure everything is level. A better option than a tripod is to use something like this. This is the Neewer ST100 overhead camera mount rig, and it's specifically designed for content creators and people who want to capture things on a desktop or tabletop. It's basically a frame which enables you to put your camera on a mount pointing downwards at the table, and you can slide the camera to the position you want. Once you've got it into the position you want, you can actually lock it in place by putting that in through one of the holes. Let's put it over there for a minute. Put that down there. It's also height adjustable, so you can vary it for a slightly larger working area. The actual camera attachment itself also has a little bit of movement up and down, so you can have a little bit of leeway. Now this, in my opinion, is the best option. It's the option I'm going to be using. This is a Kaiser copy stand. Other brands of copy stand available, but this is a Kaiser one. And this is specifically designed for the purpose of copying prints and photographs and artwork. So it's tailor-made for the job. It's basically like an enlarger baseboard and a larger center column without the enlarger bit. And to use it, you simply attach the camera to the mount here, which is pretty easy. You need to make sure it's level. And then if I turn it around so that you can see there is simply a winding mechanism that enables you to adjust the height up and down. Absolutely perfect. So that, in common with the zoom lens, is fine. But if I'm using the 105 macro lens, which doesn't have a zoom ability, then I have to use the height adjustment in order to increase or reduce the image area. Now, this copy stand has a really useful grid on the baseboard, which is perfect not only for lining up your camera to make sure that you've got everything straight and level, and you can tell when all the lines on the grid are perfectly square in the viewfinder, but also when you come to put your prints down, you can actually make sure that it's not out of skew. If you can make sure that you line it up in a certain place, and you can put it in the same place every time if you've got multiple prints. So it makes it a lot quicker and easier for you. One of the most important considerations when photographing a lot of prints is the lighting. Natural daylight may be fine for some things, but the problem with natural light is that it's continually changing. The sun is constantly moving. The temperature of that light is consistently changing. So if you've got a big project where you're photographing a lot of prints, that's not going to work. You need some light switch where the color temperature is consistent, the placement's consistent, and most importantly, that the lighting is even. So there are lots of different options. LED lights are by far the best way to go. One option here, these Rotolight Neo lights. These are Neo 3, these are RGB, but you don't really need RGB lights, you just need a consistent. Bicolor is great because you can set the warmth or coolness of the lights, and you can say a specific color temperature on the back of the light, and you can match that in the camera to make sure they're the same. The Rotolight Neo is fine, but I find that circular lights can easily create a hotspot on your pictures. So I think a better option, if you can use them, is to use a strip light. Now I've got these Neewer CL124A lights. These are bicolor lights, but one of the benefits of these is they create obviously a strip of light. And if you've got one on each side placed evenly apart, the same height and position, 45 degrees, you're going to get a nice even light on your subject. These lights also come with the addition of barn doors, which are basically metal flaps, black metal flaps, which enable you to screen the angle of the light, so you can actually stop the light from bouncing around areas of the scene that you don't want, and you can concentrate the light just in the areas you do want, which is your baseboard. So these lights are great, and I recommend them. There are lots of different strip lights available. This one from Amaran, this is a slightly bigger, more sort of professional light, but these lights are obviously also very good. Whatever you use, though, they need to be placed evenly apart, the same height on either side of the picture, to create a nice even spread of light. And you also need to set the white balance setting in your camera to be the same color temperature as whatever the light you're using. Now, there are multiple ways to attach the lights. You can use little mini tripods. One option is to use these Manfrotto arm clamps. These are adjustable, and you can clamp these to the baseboard and then affix your lights to them using something like this, Manfrotto clamps. Again, other brands are available, and there are lots of different types of photographic clamps like this, but you basically need something to hold your lights in a fixed position. Okay, so I've got my light in position. With the Rotolight Neo 3s, you also have this magnetic diffuser, which just softens the light, which might help a little bit. There you go. And Bob's your uncle. You just got to do the same on the other side. If you have a collection of negatives, transparencies, slides, and you wish to digitize those, then your technique is slightly different. Instead of lighting from above with LED lights, you need to light from behind, and you need a soft, even light. Now, the easiest way to do that is with a light box. Here's one that I've had for many years, which I use. It is ideal for the purpose. They come in different sizes. Alternatively, you can make your own kind of light box, I guess, using LED light panels in a box, but you need some sort of translucent but frosted, something like this clear white perspex on the top to diffuse the light so you don't get hot spots or uneven lighting. You also need some method of holding your negative. If you're just doing one negative or transparency, that's fine, but you're going to have lots of them. So you need some method of feeding and holding these transparencies and negatives steady in the same place while you photograph them. So for that, you need some sort of film holder. I have this thing called an essential film holder. It's a perfect device. I found it to be the best thing available. And what it consists of is a little perspex base with a pin in each corner, a column in each corner. You get a selection of masks of different types for different sizes of film and for negatives or transparencies. Not all of which I've used, as you can see. And then you select the ones you need. Like this one, for example, is for 35mm transparencies, like my Kodachromes. And then you take your slides, you put them on the columns very simply like that. Put that one on like that. And then we have these little wing nuts which hold it down. I'm not going to do these fully down, just for demonstration purposes. You can see what we mean. And this is your device. And then let's have a look at some transparencies. I've got some here. You take out your transparency and literally you pop it in here. And let's take this off here. You put it on the light box. Now, with Essential Film Holder, it's not essential to have a light box. It's obviously ideal, but you can just hold it up to a window, but then you don't have that consistency of light. It's not an ideal long-term solution. If you've got a lot of slides like I have, I've got thousands of these things I need to do, then you want something consistent and it's easy to use. So this Essential Film Holder is perfect for the job. I put it on my light box. You then need to mask off the area around the light box, around the area that you're using, the area you're not using. You don't want stray reflections from that. So something like this felt would be perfect. You just simply cover the light box, cut a hole where the film area is to allow the light to pass through there, but not where else. So you could just use pieces of black card, which is equally fine. I've got some 35mm transparencies. I've got some negatives, medium format negatives and medium format transparencies, 35mm negatives, large format copy trans. So there's going to be a mount for all of these things, and it's just a matter of choosing the one that you need and attaching it like this. Now, there's a couple of other things you're going to need if you're going to be photographing slides, because they're very, very small. Any tiny, tiny bits of dust or particles or hairs are going to be magnified massively, and it's going to effectively be Photoshop hell afterwards trying to retouch that all. So you want to keep everything as clean as possible. Try and work as in as dust-free area as possible. You're going to need a good blower brush. You're going to need some sort of cleaning. This is PEG 12 photographic emulsion cleaner, which is probably the best stuff for cleaning your film. I've got some little cotton swabs, cloth for really stubborn marks, and of course isopropyl alcohol also will do the job for you. The other thing you're going to need if you're photographing things as small as 35mm transparencies is an actual macro lens. You're not going to be able to get close enough with just a regular zoom lens. This 105mm macro lets me get 1:1 life size, so with a full frame camera I'm going to be good to go to be able to photograph these slides and fill the frame with them. Now, before you start photographing these prints, if you've got prints of all different sizes, it's a good idea to sort them out into their different sizes and to stack them up, because what you don't want to have to be doing is having to keep moving the camera up and down to adjust for different sizes of prints. So I've sorted them into 8x10s, I've got 5x7s, I've got 4x6s and some smaller ones, some random ones. I'll put those here like this. And then that way I can take one set of pictures, say the 8x10s, I set the camera up for that, I do one, and then once I've done the first one, all the others should be photographed in exactly the same position. And then I can reset the camera for the 5x7s and do all of those and so forth for all the different sizes. And that just speeds things up. Okay, so here I am in my setup. It's basically it was a bike store. I've converted it into this copy studio. And you may wonder why, first of all, that I've got the room blacked out. And the simple reason is reflections. If you get a picture, glossy prints in particular, obviously are very reflective. And if you've got a picture that has a lot of dark areas, like something like this, it's very, very difficult. It's virtually impossible in normal light to get a picture of this without getting a reflection of yourself or the windows or other things reflecting off the surface. So the best way to do that is to eliminate as many possible reflections as possible. That includes white walls, spotlights, any kinds of like windows, that sort of thing. And a blacked out room is the best way to do that. That way, obviously for the purposes of this demonstration, I've got the door open, but when I've got the door closed, the only light in this room is the light that's coming from these two lights here. These two, the strip lights, the Neewer lights I showed you earlier, are positioned, they're mounted to this frame, they're positioned at 45 degrees to the baseboard. And if you know your physics, the angle of incidence equals angle of reflectance, etc., you should know that the reflections from these lights should bounce at the same angle at which they hit the baseboard, i.e. not into the lens. You shouldn't get any reflections. If I do have any problems, I have a polarizing filter which I can put over the camera to eliminate that, but I'm hoping I shouldn't actually need that. So the next thing is to set up the camera, put the camera on the stand and to set that up and to make sure it's level. So I've got this on here now, and I'm just going to, let's have a look, let's zoom in, and I'm going to make sure that all the grid lines are square and perpendicular to the edges of the frame, which they are. So this is fine. Now the next thing now is to introduce my first print. I'll take this print here, which is shiny and reflective here, and I will, let's put my lights on actually first. Okay. Okay, I've got my lights. I'm adjusting the barn door so that all the light is concentrated on the baseboard. As I say, we have got the door open, so in fact we've got a lot of daylight coming through, which won't be the case when I'm doing this for real. But I just want to position, so I'm going to raise the baseboard, and this is at this point that I lift the tilt screen so that I can see what I'm doing without having to stand on tiptoe or stand on a chair. So, okay, I'm looking at this now. Let's have a look at the focus point. Okay. Where am I? I need to see the edges of the print. I can actually zoom out a little bit. I've actually got the 24-70 on here now, so I can actually zoom a bit. But if I had the 105 macro, I wouldn't have the ability to zoom, and I would be entirely reliant on moving the column up and down. But for this purposes, I'm just going to, there you go. I just want to show the whole print like this. Okay, that is roughly centered in the middle. Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to use this marker, this little card here. You can make your own, you can buy them, you can use a couple of rulers, whatever you like. This L-shaped card here, and I'm going to put this down on the baseboard, and I'm just going to put a little bit of tape on it so that this is my position, and I know that, so this is my position. So when I do subsequent pictures, they're all going to just slot very easily. Got a bit of gaffer tape. Just going to tape that down. Okay. Right. So I am going to put this into the corner. This is in the right place. And I am set to 60 of a second. I've turned off the image stabilization. That's important as well. If you're on a tripod, you don't need the IS on. So I've turned that off. I've got my white balance set to 5000 Kelvin, the same as the lights, so the color balance should be fine. I've now got my picture positioned exactly where I want it, so that basically, let's look at the exposure now. I feel like I should probably, it's a little, okay. This is fine. Okay. Right, so here's my first picture. Right. Okay, and I'll move that to the side. And then I'll take the next picture, and that should go in exactly the same spot. There it is. Okay, and I photograph that one. Okay, and then I take the next picture. There's a picture of me at work years and years ago. And I'll take this picture, or something like this. Pop that down. There we go. Okay. This has got a touch screen, so I can touch to focus. In actual fact, it's if you're doing this job, you may as well put it in manual focus, in fact, because the camera isn't moving, the pictures aren't moving, the baseboard isn't moving, the distance is fixed. So it saves a lot of hassle if you put it in manual focus, so that's something I didn't do. Let's just switch to manual now, okay. This one is this has been slightly trimmed. There we go. Right. So I'm now going to photograph some smaller pictures, and rather than putting my camera, I think if you get your camera too close to the picture, you are basically in your own light and in the way of your own light and casting a shadow. You don't want to have the camera in the area where the light beam is itself. You want to keep the camera higher than that. So I'm going to switch to a longer lens. I'm going to switch to my 105 macro lens. Just hold on a moment. Okay, so now I have the 105mm micro Nikkor because I'm going to photograph some slightly smaller pictures. So let's have a look. Now this is a lot longer focal length, so even though my pictures are smaller, my camera is actually higher. And let's have a look. Right, let's go into manual focus. So that's there. Intercalate a bit higher up still. Okay. Okay, I've switched to manual focus now. I'm just getting the little green box telling me I'm in focus. Right, okay. So I'm now in focus. I'm in a slightly different position again. So I'm going to move my mask, assuming that the other pictures are the same size as this one. They tend to be a bit random now. And I'm going to photograph this one. Okay, so that's done. So I'll move on to the next one. Is that done? Okay. This one is small. This has actually been cut from a larger picture. So for this one, I'm going to need to move things again. So I'm going to put this here. That's bang on. Okay. You can see why you want to photograph all pictures of the same size at the same time, because the constant removing of the mask and the constant moving the camera up and down is quite time consuming. But I'm just doing this as a demonstration of the method. Okay, so here we are. There's a smaller print, and with the 105 macro, that's absolutely fine. So let's do a couple of old vintage photographs. This is an old photograph of my granddad, taken in the 60s, I think. It's card mounted, which is an example of one of the kinds of pictures that you can't put through the batch scanner. It just won't go. That's that one. Okay. This is baby me, taken, I think, one of my first Christmases. You can see how if you have a fixed focal length lens like this macro lens, you do have to move the camera up and down the rack a lot more. You can't use the zoom to get what you want, but you are going to get slightly better quality. Not that it's hard to tell by eye nowadays, but it's slightly better with a macro lens. Here we go. So I hope you found that interesting. Do let me know what you think in the comments. If you have any other suggestions of little tips that I didn't mention in this video, do share them in the comments below. If you like the video, please hit like and don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you don't already do so. Thank you.